right. Good afternoon or evening, everybody, and welcome to today's event, Voices, Visions, and Poetry, a live reading and book launch. This is presented by Old Scratch Press and Current Words. My name is David Yurkovich, and along with Diane Pierce, I am one half of the Current Words publishing team. We're also the parent organization of Old Scratch Press. I will be working and functioning as your MC for today's event. Tonight, we'll be celebrating three extraordinary works. Dreams of the Return by Alan Bern, Jonah's Map of the Well by Anthony Doyle, and Tracing Bodies by Virginia Watts. So let's get started. It's my pleasure first to introduce Alan Bern. Alan's book is Dreams of the Return. And Alan is a retired children's librarian who received an MA in creative writing from Boston University. He studied with poet Anne Sexton and classicist Donald Carn Ross. Alan is a Pushcart nominee and has published 3 books of poetry and a hybrid fictionalized memoir in The Pace of the Path. Alan has a chapbook, Because Lack, which was published in 2024. Recent awards include a long listed for the Bedford competition and winner of the Saw Palm Poetry Contest. Recent and upcoming writing and photo work include works for Third Street Review, Echo Theo Review, Thanatos, The Hyacinth Review, Dark Winter, Feral, Porridge Magazine, and Mercurius. Alan performs with dancer choreographer Lucinda Weaver as paces, dances, and poetry fit to the space. He is a published exhibited photographer and runs a fine press with artist printer Robert Woods. The press is called Lines and Faces. His newest collection is Dreams of the Return, in which Alan reflects upon being a teenager in the mid-60s living in Napoli for a year with his family and really falling in love with it as if it were his true second home. I think I refer to him as Anthony. It's Alan. Alan's travels through Napoli and southern Italy are expressed in poetry, prose, and photos, offering readers verse that moves fluidly between the outer landscapes of travel and the inner landscapes of longing. Today, Alan will be reading 3 works from the new collection. Those are The Infinite, Vittoria, and See Naples and Die. So Alan, thank you for sharing your poems with us today. We're excited to have you here, so I will stop talking and turn everything over to you.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you, David, and thank you everybody for coming out for this Zoom. That's the cover of my book, and I'm really happy about it. As David said, I lived in Naples for a year in the mid-60s as a teenager with my family. And I really fell in love with Naples and with Italy as a country. I want to go back one step, though, to my last collection, which was called In the Pace of the Path, which gives you a context. This is a book about being born, growing up, and still living in the same neighborhood in Berkeley, California, which is a small city university town. And this is actually a photo from across the street from where I worked in downtown Berkeley. So that gives you a context. I lived 95% of my life in a 4 square block area. And I was very fortunate to have a parent, my dad, who was an academic, who went on sabbatical leaves, and we spent a year in Naples. And this picture, which I took on my latest return to Naples in 2018, is taken from my friend Marco's balcony across the dense and wild city of Naples towards, I don't know if I'd call them suburbs, but small cities across this part of the bay, right under the dangerous volcano Vesuvius. They're still waiting for it to erupt. It's not clear that it would actually destroy Naples, but it could certainly do what it did to Pompeii quite a while ago, which everybody knows about. And that's a dangerous mountain right there. And living in Naples, you got to look at it all the time, which I just found delightful. I kind of miss having a volcano nearby. Anyway, on my latest return, which was in 2018, I went with my colleague Lucinda Weaver, and we did performances there. And I was also invited to the National Library of Italy in Naples to read some poems and translations. It's part of this building. Also part of this building is the Opera House in Naples. And they still do throw tomatoes at the performers in that opera house. As far as I know, they did when I lived there, and I think they still do. Anyway, the sabbaticals in my life were turning points. This one for my young adult identity and feelings of power to be able to go to an Italian high school and learn Italian and do pretty well in the classes. And while I was doing that, I fell in love with Naples. I fell in love with its food, its language, which has its own dialect there, the Italian culture, and of course the people, who are very beautiful, a big mix of different ethnic and racial groups. In this reading, I was able to look at the papers of the second most important Italian poet after Dante, whose name is Giacomo Leopardi, who was actually born in the north but came down to Naples in his later years and died living on the side of Vesuvius. So I got to look at some of the documents there with my friend Marco, and we both were crying because it was so moving to see his work. And I've spent years of my adult life reading, translating, and studying both Dante and Giacomo Leopardi. So the first poem I'm going to read is his most famous, well-known poem called L'Infinito, or The Infinite. The Infinite. This is my translation. Always dear to me, this solitary hill and this thicket that screens out so much of the view of the farthest horizon. But sitting and gazing out, I frame in my mind endless spaces beyond and silences that surpass anything human, and a deep stillness. There, for a single beat, the heart is not afraid, and as the wind comes murmuring among these plants, I begin to compare that infinite silence to this voice, and I recollect eternity, and the dead seasons past, and the present one alive before me, and her sound. So in this immensity, my thinking goes under and sinks, and the ship going down is sweet to me in this sea. As I mentioned, living in Naples, I fell in love with so many aspects of life there, including the beauty of the people, especially the young people. And in my class was a girl named Vittoria, and of course I had a crush on her. And she lived in the area near the school called the Vomero, which was not near where I lived, so I had to take a bus there every day. So this is a poem dedicated to her. Vittoria. On the street of the Vomero, my hands were so cold, I pulled on light gloves to hold your hands. Somehow, yours were warm. You invited me in to study matematica, mathematics. Once inside, instead, I pulled you to me, and your eyes closed. Instead of kissing, we hugged, slipping on the couch covered with plastic. Your eyes began to roll, and you asked me to leave right then before your parents returned. And as we stood up, I pulled you to me once again. I have never felt another's body soften in that way, something once called swooning. And finally, I'm going to read a poem which is kind of my hymn to Naples. And there's an expression about Naples, which is Vedi Napoli e poi mori, which means see Naples and die. In other words, once you've seen the beautiful Naples, which you get a kind of an example of in my cover, you can go ahead and die. You've seen this beautiful, beautiful place. And this is dedicated to my friend Marco. And of course to pizza pie as well. Marco, more pie, more pizza pie. Stai inguaiato, the oven's not even hot. Way, blessed mother, Jesu Cristo. He's a know-nothing. Well, he does have idioms, and when the GI asks him how he's doing, he comes back with, Tango awalara, thank you. 2 long wallets ready to rupture. Sfachim, he says, he has sperm in his hand towel and doesn't know whether to put it. What a fucking bother. But in this mess of traffic, here and there, cars on every sidewalk, he is a sprinting quail, as the good Napolitani say, enu bravo goglione. A directed messenger carrying fresh fish fillets wrapped tightly in yesterday's news, and running, slapping both feet, a lit cigarette on his lower lip. And in my book, this poem is translated into Italian, so not just a few phrases of Italian, Neapolitan Italian, but the whole thing by my friend Marco. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. That was wonderful. Just a quick plug, anybody wanting to learn more about Alan should visit his website, poetryandpics.com. That's poetryandpics.com. Moving on, we're gonna next hear from Anthony Doyle. So born in Ireland and now living in Brazil, Anthony Doyle is a writer and translator whose work spans fiction, poetry, and children's literature. His speculative novel, Hibernaculum, is a 2024 Next Generation Indie Book Awards finalist in science fiction. It's been praised for its gripping exploration of human hibernation and survival. He's also published 2 children's books in Portuguese, the most recent of which he both authored and illustrated. Anthony's latest collection is called JONAH'S Map of the Well and Other Poems. And it charts the vast emotional and imaginative territory, balancing intimacy with universality through rhythm, layered meaning, and mythic resonance. In addition to writing Jonah, Anthony also created the book's amazing cover art and interior art. Today, Anthony will be reading 3 selections from the new collection: Okino's Blundra's Spread of Investments, and 3 Visitors. Anthony, welcome. It's great to have you here today. I will turn everything over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening to everybody. Lovely to see you all. Thanks for coming. I'm going to read 3 poems from the book. David did the cover, Jonah's Map of the Whale. This is a book in 3 sections. Each section is about a different character. The first character is a young man called Flounder. He's a young Irishman with drink problems and psychological problems. And he finds himself constantly unconscious in one way or another, immersed. And this is reflected in the poems by his becoming a flatfish, hence the name Flounder. So sometimes Flounder is an actual fish, sometimes he's a person. It depends on his state at the time. So I'm going to read the first poem from this section, which is called Okino's. It's the fish and chip shop he goes to at nights after his few hours in the pub. And it's also where he sees the unrequited love of his life, a young girl called Molly. Okino's Fish and Chips, a neon lighthouse, beacon for drunken fish. Outside, the basking sharks buzz the monument, raking gusts of rain, somnambulant as nightshade, rocking parked cars with their ram tails. And with a jangling bell, time stops still. Molly stumbles on the step, coming through the door. Brent Doyle for eye shade, a scar on her lower jaw, seaweed in the cups of her push-up bra. She scuttles to the counter with barnacles for knees and orders up a fillet. When you're ready, pretty please. Now Flounder watches as she wades on by, converting her to memory with his migrant eye. Her whitewater perfume, her midwater chic, a pool of rosy wonder on her abalone cheek. Her sweet Molly shimmers like a Caribbean reef, luring life from all around, drawn from blue tone deep. Yeah, she gives him moon swell every single time, a rush of plankton to the head like salty gallows wine. She is bathypelagic magic, summoned from a trench, with fingers like piano keys and eyes that never blench. Her aura runs as flickers, up and down her spine, luciferans bursting, rhythmical as rhyme. She's too much sea for a tub like him, too much sand for his shore. Yeah, he's heard it all before. Where Flounder's from, the only place to look is up. Things of the world are seen through the light they block. But Molly gleams like metal. Molly twinkles like a star. A mermaid made in heaven to be worshipped from afar. A mermaid from the heavens, an angel from below. Her row rich as stardust in drifts of neon glow. And Flounder cannot bear to look, but somehow has to stare. One day perhaps she'll see him solidify in air. The next poem is from section 2, which is Blundra's Spread of Investments. Blundra is a young girl, a millennial, and she's successful together. She's a very clever young girl, but she feels she's missing something. She's constantly looking for something beyond this world. And this tends to be personified in the poems by the voice of her dead grandmother. So in this poem, she's talking to her investment manager because she's young, but she's like many of this generation, she's fairly clued in and she wants to get ahead. So the portfolio manager emailed from across the felt top table, hexagonal with 4 legs, 3 stretchers, 1 diagonal. The spread lay out before her. Positions in cups, positions in wands and swords, positions especially in coins. Dosed aggression, well-aimed caution, stubborn heels dug in. The good investor Blundra is like a chimera, part lion, part snake, part goat. Attend to the future, it's all we've got. Attend to the past, my dear, said Grandmama from the shade of a painted rock. It's all there's ever been. Blundra felt a sudden urge to dance barefoot on the plush tabletop, an anti-clockwise jig with skirt spin. The next poem is from part 3, which is Jonah's Map of the Whale. It's a long poem in sections, and it follows the life of a Wall Street trader, a shady character, who's constantly trying to run away from epiphanies that keep presenting themselves to him over the course of his life. Eventually, he's attacked by a bull shark, which is the whale, if you like, of the Jonah story, and ends up in a coma for 3 days, which is the whale's belly. During this time, he's visited by 3 strange characters who will take him on a voyage through his lifetime, going backwards all the way to childhood. So in many respects, it's almost the turn of the 21st century tale, and it features some of the most important events of the recent decades, the late 90s and early 2000s, wars, financial crises, and so forth. So this poem is called 3 Visitors. April 24th, 2018. Laetoli mud on primitive feet. Volcanic ash on tangled hair. Australopithecus afarensis, gags malodorous chemical air. He strokes a stump of severed leg and stares into a beardless face, turned taut and pale in bleary light that gives no measurement of place. Behind him trails the Iceman Otzi, leather-bound like an ancient book, disgorged from millenary ice from the folds of an alpine rook. He draws erect his murdered frame and shuffles in his goatskin coat, regards a while the bandaged stump with gaze familiar and remote. With the wanderer and southern ape, another waits beside that bed, a younger man in a desert cape, a crown of scars around his head. The three stand at the sleeper's side and pass along a quart of rum, as Jonah dreams in seaweed lash, a fainted soul, half drowned, grown numb. 3 nights he'll wade encaged by ribs, as shallow waters lap his shins. 3 nights and days he'll dream the fish, defibrillant, in mocking fins. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you for reading. Thank you for sharing your work. Anyone interested in learning more about Anthony can visit his website, which is anthony-doyle.com. Well, that brings us to Virginia Watts, who will be reading next. Ginny is a fiction writer and poet whose work examines human connection, place, and memory. Her debut short story collection, Echoes from the Hawker House, received 3rd place in the 2024 Feathered Quill Awards and was a Kirkus Best Indie Book of 2023. Her work has appeared in numerous literary journals, including The MacGuffin, Reed Magazine, and Pithead Chapel. Her new poetry collection is Tracing Bodies. It maps emotional terrain with honesty and tenderness. Today, Jenny will be reading 2 works from the collection, Server 2 and Deer. She'll also be reading Kitchen Witch, which will be appearing in an upcoming issue of the biannual literary magazine, Tar River Poetry. Jenny, thank you for joining us and for being here. I will turn the mic over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here, especially with Alan and Anthony, who I admire so much and like so much. So this is really fun. It's really a privilege. So quickly, the idea behind this book was really remembering when I was a child and we would make these cutouts in school of people, and when you pull them apart, it looked like people standing together hand in hand. And so this is basically a book of unforgettable characters from my memory, from my lifetime. And the poems are titled very simply, like Snake, Horse, Dad, Chicken Bride, Townsfolk, sunbathers, classmates. So they're just people that I knew a long time, or maybe I met only for a very short time, that I've never forgotten. And so I've chosen as a first poem, a poem that's entitled Server Number 2. And that means basically someone that I saw at a restaurant just one time. So here's how this poem goes, and here comes my cat, always on cue. The server at Denny's, as beautiful as Diana Ross, is fed up. She's slamming down diner plates, silverware. Her sneer says, "Shut up or get out." And who could blame her? The place is a dump. Even her false eyelashes are ungluing themselves to escape sticky tables, ripped seat cushions, crummy carpet, toddlers screaming, customers bitching about cold 45-minute late eggs, coffee rings inside mugs. Are all Denny's in Georgia shit? The server's name is Georgia too, as the regulars know, including the toothless young woman wearing a rumpled Mickey Mouse sweatshirt who carries an infant in a car seat to a booth, unbuckles it, rocks it, hugs it tight to her breast, coos to the naked body stiff as death, a plastic baby doll wearing knitted booties. Georgia pretends to heat the pink bottle the woman yanks from her diaper bag by disappearing into a crashing, hollering kitchen, reemerges to test the formula's temperature, 3 drops of air on her delicate wrist, before she hands the bottle back. Here, Mama. All ready now. And the second poem from my collection, Tracing Bodies, basically just a bit of background. On my mother's side, my ancestors came over in the late 1800s and founded a Quaker meeting house in northern Pennsylvania in Sullivan County. And the name of it was Elkland Friends Meeting House. And it's in a little tiny place called Shunk, Pennsylvania. And actually, it's still an operating meeting house. And if you go there at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning, you would be more than welcome to come inside the little tiny white clapboard building and sit for a meeting for an hour, which is basically a silent time. So this is a memoir poem about that meeting house and about my grandparents. And the title of this is Deer, deer as in D-E-E-R, the animal. All night, snow falls in buckets as if to bury us. In the morning, we dig a pathway to the garage, my grandparents and me, and head to Quaker meeting. The wind yowls, rocks our car, a toy boat on a listing sea. Bright white pastures drop away into bright white horizon. I squint at trees that stand alone here and there, shorter than they should be, branches bowed, people who didn't run fast enough to find shelter. I feel like we are driving across the moon, Grandpa says, and we could be if not for the dead buck slack-jawed on the side of the road. He lies in a bed of startling crimson, cherry syrup that drenched our summertime snow cones. I feel guilty for thinking about something silly. Cursed logging truck, Grandma hisses. It was always a logging truck. The killers careen down narrow mountain roads, overloaded, behind schedule for a delivery to the mill in the low country. Bullets on wheels, we call them. Grandpa stops, swings open the car door. It whines a morning for the poor dear. I roll down my window, listen to boot treads crunch across ground pancaked by truck tires, mammoth, mighty, and mean. The animal's back legs are crushed flat. The white-tipped tail is off by itself. Grandpa leans over, grabs front hooves, drags the body into fresh snow. Tan velvet coat, black nose, long eyelashes, acorn brown eyes. When Grandpa stands up, the front of his corduroys are blood-kissed. I sit beside him at meeting with what we could take of the slain life with us. It probably seems like we didn't change anything, like stopping and laying a hand on a dead animal didn't matter. And the final poem I'm going to read, I actually have a little prop to show you. I don't know if you can see a little witch. And this is similar to the one that this poem is about, something my mother had in our kitchen for many years during the 1970s. And the poem is Kitchen Witch. Mom got the poppet as a gift. Gingham headscarf, red skirt, muslin blouse, white apron. It hung from a string over a gurgling sink, hands glued to a straw broom. I liked the witch. She was ugly, proud ugly, beautiful ugly, a hag who held her head high. We kids swatted her to get her swinging. She was fun like that. Never one to come undone or shy away from executing a full flip. A good luck charm? I doubt it, more gimmick than vibe. No magic spells in that kitchen until the day a neighbor boy called our family crone Dick Nose, and I sucker punched him in the gut. Doubled him over as the sorceress whooped, cackled, tipped up her broom, flew higher and higher, crashed window glass into a shatter of stars, and disappeared into the violent violence of night. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you for closing out the reading so beautifully. You can learn more about Jenny at virginiawatts.com. So I hope to see you all here at our next live event. And on behalf of the members of the Old Scratch Press Poetry and Short Form Writing Collective, I want to wish everybody a wonderful evening and have a great rest of your weekend. And thank you so much for being part of this Voices, Visions, and Poetry book launch and reading. Have a great night.